Hey guys, this is Phil from underKG.com. This is the iPhone 6s. Obviously, it's in pink. No, I mean the rose gold. Of course it's called rose gold, but it's more like pink, as everybody said it. But I'm not really sure. It's not exactly my favorite color. But here's the new color, so we hope you enjoy this. Alright, so inside the phone, not inside the phone, on the exterior of the phone, you got the 4.7 inches of a display and the same resolution as always, receiver and the upgraded 5 megapixel camera with the retina flash. We'll talk about that just in a second. And there's a home key that doubles as a fingerprint reader, Touch ID of course, and that's twice as fast as ever before. We'll talk about that just in a second. Power key, nano SIM card tray, and the earphone jack, microphone, speaker, nothing to the top. On the left, we got the volume rocker with the mute toggle key there. And the 12 megapixel camera that's finally upgraded from the 8 megapixel camera. And the LED flash, the microphone, Apple logo, iPhone logo, and that weird antenna line is still there. And we're no big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of it. I actually hate it. But the rose gold, the new color, doesn't really do much to hide this behind this ugly looks. And you got the S badge there just in case nobody notices your rose gold iPhone 6s, or if you happen to buy the more of a classical last generation color of the silver, space gray, and gold. Lastly, not my favorite color either, but it's got the upgraded materials. It's got a 7000 series aluminum, so it would save your phone from the bend gate. Now this iPhone 6 is slightly bent as well, although you can't really see it. But it's supposed to save you from that, and it's also in the same time a little bit narrower, thicker, and bigger, taller in the same time. But most of your cases will fit just good, so you got no problems with that. And this is actually 13 grams heavier. It might sound like a small amount of the weight, but as a phone small like this, that's definitely noticeable, especially if you like to put your phone in the pocket like that. I don't usually do that, but there is definitely a weight bump there. The build quality is nice again. It's still an iPhone with stronger material that's less likely to bend, and some reports have suggested there are ceilings inside, so it's going to make water less of an intrusive to your phone if you happen to have some moisture around you. But don't believe too much on that because it's not waterproof phone or it's a splash-proof phone. So you would definitely want to get your phone away from the water by any chance. Now the display is bright and is accurate in color reproduction. It matches the full sRGB gamut as Apple tells us, and outside legibility is above average. We're a big fan of the iPhone's display. It's a very good display. I honestly don't see much room for improvements in a good way. There are calls for the resolution upgrade, but with Apple packing such a tiny battery, a resolution bump doesn't really sound like it's going to do much good for the battery endurance or the performance overall. So we're not exactly expecting it anytime soon. Now the call and the sound quality. The call quality has been always nice since the iPhone 5. Before then, it was there were death grips and there were problems all around the corners. But since the iPhone 5, the call quality is great, and this guy does great calls too. And whether you're calling or making or receiving the calls are crisp and soft in the same time. That's kind of weird, but it's good. Now the speaker is another part that I really like about the iPhones, and the iPads is one of the best speakers in the market. It's very loud and it's got the bass. It's really hard to find a bass in a small phone like this. It's just great speaker, and the earphone, music, just everything is so good. Now the camera, software IS image stabilization. It's not the IS that you think. Software image stabilization does its job, but it doesn't have the OIS the iPhone 6 Plus, the bigger guy over here, has. Discriminating against the smaller phones? Not nice. Of course, they would have wanted to, or not, but considering that there's even a camera bump over there that Apple would hate it to put, we guess that's the size concerns, but not having an OIS is definitely not a good thing. Now, it takes 4K video, which a vast majority of the Android phones and even Windows phones, read Lumia, have been able to do for a long period of time now. It's nothing surprising, but here's a sample, so enjoy. And live photo is seldom enjoyable, but largely annoyed by the delay that somehow feels obligatory, that you would want to have your phone still while the phone tells you with the ding that your live photo is done. So you can turn that off, so I suggest that you turn it off unless you desperately need it. It's fun, by the way. Retina flash sounds like a fun idea, but hardly useful. At medium brightness, it just worsens a photo by making it shaky. We've seen better front-facing flashes, so we're not really a big fan of this new addition over here. Whoops, there. Now, the performance-wise, that 16 gigabytes of storage should fade away now. Even the light users will face problems with the limited storage fairly soon. Apps are getting larger, and even by the surfing the web, cache files are getting larger due to higher resolution images. It's not how you use it. The rest of the world is now with bigger data, and the 16 gigabyte is not the 16 gigabytes that it's used to be. They should definitely bump up the base storage to 32 or 60 gigs at least. Now, there's an issue with the TSMC and the Samsung manufactured APs. They're same A9s, but with different manufacturing processes. One is in 14 nanometers and one is in 16 nanometers. And with 6 different maxes and matches of the parts that your iPhone can have, it seems very tricky to choose what you want. It's not that Apple necessarily lied about this in any legal papers, but it does get into your nerve as if TLC and the MLC of the last generation was enough for a random shuffle choice that Apple likes that you are going to face. I hope there is no bigger surprise for the iPhone 7 if there was going to be any. The upgraded A9 chipset claims to have 70% more upgrades for CPU and 90% for GPU. Everyday workloads showed minor differences, but 3D gaming load time proved a clear improvements over even the just past generation of the iPhone 6 dubbed. However, the biggest and the most welcome feature is the RAM it has. With 2 gigabytes of RAM, it still doesn't match to its competitor with even 4 gigabytes of RAM with the phone cheaper than the half of the price of this guy, albeit the differences between the different OSs poses. That's actually quite enough for the iOS, and finally resolved the Safari reload and the app reload that was really frustrating. Now, the Touch ID is so fast that I often miss notification. It opens before you even read them, and it's really hard to control your music because Touch ID just instantly opens up your phone. I adopted to the good old power key on the right side, but there's got to be a setting to this. Maybe a delay to unlocking the phone. That would be nice. Now, software-wise, it ships with iOS 9. It mainly focuses on the performance improvements. They added a neat little few features, but nothing spectacular. Serious Better, Apple News is here, and those got even more features. With more built-in apps, including my personal favorite reminders, it might not for everyone, but Tim Cook has announced that the iOS might support deleting built-in apps in near future, so we'll have to count on that. Overall, it's a smooth experience, but with iOS bugs that are always an uninvited guest for early 0.0 builds, it's not exactly it's far from being perfect. Now, 3D Touch is a useful feature. You can tap on the icons and get into the quick features here and there. It's really, you've got to try it to see what it's like. There are not a lot of third-party apps. There are only big ones so far, like Facebook or Instagram, that support the features. But the more are coming on their way, so we'll have to wait. It takes a little pressure, a little harder than we'd like by the default settings. So we recommend you to go to the accessibility setting over there and make that softer by tapping on the 3D Touch menu, light as they call it. If you don't like it, you can turn it off completely. So if you're not a big fan of it, there's an option for you as well. So, and there is a peek at Pop. That's a useful feature where you don't have to bother making that email unread again. If more messengers start to support it, you wouldn't have to start making excuses for not replying to their read messages. Hint, hint. Many of the native apps, including Photos, Messages, and Reminders and Notes, support them, and multitasking slider works as well with the 3D Touch. That's hardly usable, and I don't think that's practical at all. Pressing down on the keyboard for your cursor, now that's the good stuff. Meanwhile, before this, you had to touch there and have this little magnifier to microcontrol, pinpoint your cursor. Now you can hard press on the keyboard and make that cursor. You have two different scenes here, so you know where exactly you're going instead of hiding the cursor by your finger. Now, the Haptic engine is found in the Apple Watch and the new MacBook is present on the 6S as well. And it does far more than telling you how the 3D Touch is working. It's replacing your whole vibrating model in the previous generations. Texting, text messages, and call notifications are now a pleasure to be notified. Now, this is something new, and I would like to call that revolutionary. Definitely, it's fun stuff and good in the same time. not a battery. It's just an iPhone, and it should be enough to last through the whole day, which isn't enough just for me because I usually head up to home and I'm at 11 o'clock and I'm left out with no juice at all. But they did add a new feature, the battery saver. Not really a big fan of it. It saves your battery by sacrificing some of the features that are important to me, such as the push notifications. It's an okay for the iPhone. It's almost the same as the iPhone 6s, but not enough for a 2015 flagship. Come on, it's time to just beef up the battery. Of course, there's the plus for that, but I want even the same level of the battery, if not better, with the smaller version as well. Now, the conclusion-wise, as an iPhone, it doesn't overwhelm any of its competitors, including the low lighting photo. Now, the flagship Androids just killed the iPhone 6s, but you wouldn't have any complaints either. I can't really say any, but it's really hard to complain to any of the parts. It's really a well-balanced phone, and every time I review one, I'm really surprised at how well-balanced and well-built in every single dimension the iPhones are. Should you upgrade to the iPhone 6s? Well, the answers are pretty much always the same. It's an S model, so if you're using the previous generation, the iPhone 6 or the 6 Plus, not really. There are differences, but it's not worth the money that you pay for. If you're coming from an older generation like the iPhone 5 or the 5S, definitely, if you can live up and stand with that ugly design. Never been a fan. So that was the iPhone 6s. Revolutionary in some parts, not really in a lot of parts, but still, I like this guy. That was iPhone 6s. Don't forget to subscribe, and that was our review for the iPhone 6s. Bye.